All right. Let's give God a quick round of applause. We woke up this morning, you know, most of us close to being in our right minds. And, glad when they said unto me, let's go to the house of the Lord. Right, so, okay, with do homage to Stephen King, what were we working on last week, right? To Stand? Yeah. Right? And y'all know he had a novel called The Stand, right? Okay. Anyway, all right. So, basically we were talking about, you know, are you gonna hold the line? Or are you gonna fold up and crumble like a wet paper napkin? Anybody ever, like, you know, when you had a paper towel roll, you'd get the middle part out after all the towels were gone, and you'd start fighting with your brother or whatever, you're not thinking there were swords, and you'd beating each other with them, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, what happens if that thing gets all wet? You're pounding on each other, but if you wet that thing, you know, it's like a noodle, right? It just, and it won't do anything, right? So you got two conditions. The one where it's useful, the other where it's not really doing anything. Right? So isn't that kind of what we were looking at? What was going on with all these situations and these people that we were talking about last week? They had to make a choice.
Yeah.
Right? They had to decide if they were going to just roll up and die, which they could have, or were they going to keep going? Right? So maybe I got like a little description myself here from yesterday. All right, so you know we got like you know, child abuse, right? We got husband abuse, we got wife abuse. I'm waiting for him to come up with vehicle abuse. You know, I need to talk to DHS about that. We need vehicle abuse here. I decided before they started leaking to try to change the heater hoses on my truck. Now that probably don't mean a whole lot to a lot of you, but let me just tell you, they're like way in this little corner behind the engine. And they ain't easy to get to at all. So I'm like laying on top of the intake manifold, right? Trying to reach around here through this little hole with all these different assorted tools, trying to get a grab on these clamps to pull them off. Now, I can guarantee you, they put all those pieces in the truck when they're building it before the engine goes in. Right, so there's just this big empty hole. So, you know, the dude is out there, you know, I don't know if it's hanging from a crane or he gets inside or whatever, right? He just climbs in through the engine bay. There's this giant empty hole. He can just stand right there and it's like, oh, this is great. This is easy. You just put these on, right? And then you get it after it's all built and you're looking at it and you're going, oh, man, really? Really? Dale knows. Heater hose clamps?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, weren't they invented by Satan?
Yeah,
Yes.
the old ones were.
Yeah, this had the old school ones, the clampy clamps.
Yeah, once you
The spring ones.
take your finger off.
Yeah, that's the one. I still got a mark on my thumb from it.
Wow.
So I'm out there, right, and it wasn't super high yesterday if anyone was outside, but the humidity was still like a 300%. I didn't know if they could actually get over 100, but apparently it can.
Yes, it can.
So I went through 2 t-shirts. I mean, it was just completely soaked through with sweat. Go inside, sit down for a few minutes, so get a drink, change shirts, and go, I gotta go back out again. Finish this. You're already halfway through it, and you're still not having any fun. You're like, I ain't even done yet. That takes, I don't know, has anybody ever been doing that? Like something, a project was really hard, whatever it was, and it was just beating the living you know what out of you, and you know that you're still not done and you got to go back to it.
Yeah.
You got to take the stand, right? You still have to go finish this up, and you're thinking about the things you haven't accomplished yet in getting this project done, and you're just like, oh, I ain't got it. I just don't have it. If you figure, like, here was the truck, right? I was actually on a stand, right? Because I have a 2-inch lift on my truck, and it's not a little tiny truck to start with, right? So I actually had to get on a step ladder to get into the engine. So I'm like here, like up on this thing, and I'm like this. I'm hurting in places I didn't even own. Ugh. But I still had to finish it, didn't I? Because either that or A, I ain't got to pay somebody else to do it, or B, I ain't got an operable truck, and I got to go to the office on Tuesday. So Karen's like, well, maybe you should just finish it later. I'm like, finish it when? If it isn't today, it's after church tomorrow. I'm not going to want to do that. And then Monday, I got maybe, if I'm lucky, a couple hours, and hopefully it doesn't rain, right? And the lights, already starting to go away. Days getting shorter, right? So you got shadow all down in there, right? Because that is not a great place to begin with. You got the hood up like this, right? So it's cutting all your sunlight, and you got to try to see down in this dark hole. And there's like no place to put a flashlight or anything because all this other garbage is in the light. You're trying to get through all that, and you're like, you just got to go through, and you just got to force it, right? Well, we see a lot of characters here. I mean, people in the Bible didn't have to repair an engine, but that was pretty lightweight compared to a lot of stuff that these guys had. I mean, as Pastor likes to say, Paul's resume, right? I mean, I'm going to complain about wrestling with truck parts for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, this guy was in prison. He was on a ship that got busted up while he was on it, right? He got arrested. He was cold. He was hungry. He had it. All right, so where are we up to, right? We got up to Ephesians, right? And we were talking about all of the different items, right? Helmet, shield, breastplate, and then what do we get all the way to the end, remember, right? What's the last one? All those parts we had talked about, right? Remember how we got over that? Actually, I think we went over it a couple of times. Yeah. Only the sword is an offensive weapon. Right? The other pieces are to keep you from getting hacked up. The sword is to give a hack to somebody else. So,
good point.
He said, I'll build a church, my church, on a rock, and the gates of hell shall not prevail. Well, did you ever see a gate run through a field firing a gun? No? A gate is not a tank. It's not an airplane. It's not an armored transport vehicle. A gate is a purely defensive weapon, isn't it? It sits in one place and does one thing. You had one job. It keeps either something in, if maybe it's a prison, or most of the time, it's more of a fortress thing, it's keeping something out. Right? So like the Lord of the Rings, it was all the orcs and all those creepy right out there, and they've got this big gate so that doesn't get inside. And then they come with the battering ram, and they start punching holes in it, right? And the guys are all like, they're all on the other side getting, oh, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. And a few of them run away. They just don't have it, do they? The other guys are all there, bring it. Knowing that half of them are probably going to die, and they're ready to defend anyway. They're on the offense. So the gate of hell shall not prevail. Is the gate of hell worried if we're all sitting around in the field having a picnic? No. When we go to hit up a foreign country, okay, like say the first Gulf War, right? We spent all this money and all this time, months getting ready, right? Bush Sr. said, get out. Saddam said, no, I don't decide to feel like that today. Bush said, no, that wasn't a request. That was an order, get out. He said, no, I kind of really like it here. I don't want to get out. It's like, well, all right, then we're going to have to do something about that. So first it was Desert Shield, right? We're sending all this stuff over there. We got all the planes and everything getting ready, the tanks. So let's just say we got all that stuff over there and it's all ready, it's all lined up in the sand, and we're like, all right, it's go time, and nobody moves. Right? He tells, what was his name? Buster Glosson, I think, right? The commander of the air power. All right, go ahead. I want round-the-clock bombing. No planes are flying. Everybody's just sitting there playing cards, polishing their plane because, it's a little dirty, all that sand flying around. It's like they don't have, it doesn't have that perfect show and shine, so he's out there with his Simon eyes working his plane. He's like, Where's my round-the-clock bombing? Just, we'll get to it. Would Kuwait have been liberated if we just yelled at them? We tried that. It didn't work. It did not work. Some people you can yell at them and they will run. He wasn't one of them.
That's like our children. They don't listen.
Yeah. See, those guys, dictators like that, they're actually cowards. They really are. Because where did we find him later? Hiding in a hole. He was hiding in a hole.
Children.
Yeah. Using women and children as shields. Yeah, they put military equipment on top of hospitals and things like that, thinking that we wouldn't airstrike it because, oh, well, they're not going to blow up civilians. They're too civilized. But we're not. We don't care. So how are we going to get him out of there? I like staying in Kuwait. It's fun. This is my place now. I don't feel like moving. Well, we all know that they didn't sit around and polish their jets.
Right.
We did bomb them round the clock, and the war was over in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He started out with the 4th largest army in the world, and a couple weeks later he had the 4th largest army in Iraq. Ours being number 1 at that point, because we were the prime muscle behind the whole thing, as we usually are. It's a UN operation, which means, well, America goes in and a couple other guys show up and kind of help.
Right.
We know.
Yeah.
But like I said, if they just stood there and just yelled across the border, so let's say that this is Kuwait right here, right? The rock starts right here. He's like, hey, you! Hey! Get out! Right now, get out! I want you gone. Get out! And that's all he ever did, was just stand there day after day and yell. Would have accomplished absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, we had to use force. And a lot of people died. on their side, really. We had like 100 and something, and they had a guesstimate of around 100,000. And we took an absurd amount of prisoners. There were people that were actually surrendering to drones.
Yeah.
They didn't even know that there was nobody in this aircraft. And how are you supposed to surrender to an aircraft to begin with? And they're all like, I had enough. I really had enough. Because we had our B-52s just carpet bombing. I don't know if you've ever seen what a video of a carpet bombing looks like. It starts out about a mile wide and it goes about 2.5 miles long, and nothing lives. It turns it into the moon. It's just crater, 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 crater. They overlap. They're so close together, nothing is left. You could start with a jungle, and all you'd have is dirt. And that's what we did to them day after day after day. These guys were so, what they used to call it, shell shock, right? PTSD, whatever, right? They were so bomb shocked from what we did that they were just, whole divisions were just surrendering. They're like, 10,000 guys, I'm done. I'm done. I can't sleep. I can't think. The concussions just rattle your head. Physically you get whacked just by an air blast. And they just gave up and said, we had enough. We had enough. Have we had enough yet? How do we carpet bomb the gates of hell? Be nice if aircraft could be used for that too, huh? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Weapons are not caught.
We're just where I was going to go. Thank you. Exactly. That's exactly right. Our weapons are not B-52s. Our weapons are not M1, A2 Abrams tanks. Weapons are not 155 millimeter howitzers. They're not carnal. Pulling down of what? Strongholds, it said, right? Wickedness in high places.
Yes.
Plenty of, yeah. Day by day, right? Day by day. Timothy, Paul writing to his, what do we say, his adopted son, right? 2 Timothy, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. Why would he be ashamed? Rightly dividing the word of truth. Why would Timothy be ashamed?
You don't study.
Oh, so you look like a moron, huh? Somebody asks you a question, and you're just like... Anybody know people like that? You ask them a fairly in-depth question, and they have the deer in the headlights, and you're like, yeah, the lights are on, but nobody's home. They're just like... Crickets, yeah. And you're like, never mind, forget it. I'll go find somebody who knows. I'll ask them. Well, you don't want to be the crickets guy, do you?
No.
But if you never study at all, you're going to be the cricket guy. Because somebody's going to come up and go, somebody told me, blah, blah, blah. All you got to do is run up to the altar and say, Jesus, I'm sorry, accept him into your heart, and you're going to heaven.
No.
Are you the cricket guy? Yeah, maybe. Or do you say, what does it say in Acts chapter 2? Let's start at verse 1 and go through it. And you run it down for them, and they're like, oh, wow, that's not what I was told. Okay, well, who told you? Blah, blah, blah. And where did they tell you from? Oh, that was a letter to a church. So if they'd already accepted, they already knew about Acts 2:38 and had followed that. So there's your acceptance. Oh my. Wow. Okay, that changes things a bit. But if you didn't know any of that, how are you going to tell them that? Just to avoid looking dumb, you might agree with them, right? I mean, how anybody's ever done that? Somebody said something that sounded pretty stupid, but you're not sure if you really knew a better answer, so you're like, yeah, okay. And just kind of hoping nobody's watching, right? Let me just get away from the spotlight here. I don't want anybody to see that I didn't know either. Sliding out of view, right? Rightly dividing the word of truth. Hold that. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. What's he dividing? He's dividing. Creflo Dollar. He's dividing. It's gonna be a great day. Jesus loves you. Yes, Jesus does love you. But he doesn't love what you're doing because he said that we have all fallen short and sinned.
That's right.
So we got to fix that, right? But we can't really fix that, can we? We could tell him we did something stupid or willful, sometimes knowing. And then it says that he is what? Faithful to forgive. But if we don't read, how do we know that either?
Right.
Right? So separating is going to be a great day from what's really happening. But yeah, it might be a great day. Some days. Some days. Are some days not going to be great days? Yeah.
Amen.
Ye shall be hated for my name's sake.
Right.
If I never read, I wouldn't know that either, would I? So I love the one, oh, really? You're one of them, huh? One of them Christian types. I get it. Hides behind God's skirt because you ain't got no spine yourself. I know.
Crutch.
Ah, it's a crutch. Yeah, exactly.
That one was.
I know them types. You ain't got no fight in you. You're hiding behind Jesus, boy. I've had people throw stuff like that at me. I've had.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's not just me.
Yep.
So he's taking the stand and we're hiding behind his skirt, eh? Tell that to the church in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Tell that to the hidden underground church in China.
Yeah.
Tell that to half the countries in the world.
North Korea.
North Korea. Yeah, they're lucky to find a flashlight to be able to read.
Truth.
Mm-hmm. And we think we got it hard.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Shunning profane and vain babblings, TV preachers. They will increase unto more ungodliness. Gee, Timothy. Gee, Paul, what's happening there? So, are you saying that if we're listening to somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, they're going to drag us into worse trouble? Oh. Who used to hang out or who was? Maybe you are the worst kid in the neighborhood, and everybody else, the parents are like, that boy going to end up in prison by the time he's 18. Most of us know one of those, don't we? The kid that was always in trouble, and what did it do? It started out little, right? Like maybe stealing some pack of gum, lying to the parents. And what did it end up going to? Grand Theft Auto with a weapon. They escalate, don't they? They start out a little puny, just like serial killers, right? They start out, killing birds, and they graduate up to torturing cats, and then all of a sudden you hear this guy on the news, they're taking out co-ed students at the high school or the college, and they just disappear. And nobody knows where these women went. And then they find them in a freezer in the guy's basement. He didn't start out there, did he?
If they lived that long.
If they lived that long, yeah. But they didn't get better, did they? They got worse, right? It started out here, and anybody ever watch Breaking Bad? Did anybody ever see the whole series?
Yeah.
Where the guy started out, basically as a high school teacher and turned into Mr. Death. I actually thought that was I don't know if I'd recommend for everybody to watch this. It was a tough series, but I thought that was a much better representation than watching how they tried to show Anakin become Darth Vader. This guy really just slipped right off the crest. He started out as a nice guy, and by the time he got to the end, it's like, oh, that guy needed killing. His morals were just on vacation. Just gone. Very well written, though. Fascinating to watch that whole thing. Progressing, increasing unto more ungodliness. Their words will eat as cankers. Concerning the truth, some have erred, saying the resurrection is past, and overthrow the faith of some. Nevertheless, the foundation of God stands sure, having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his. Let everyone that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. And came one and told them, saying, Behold, the men whom ye put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people. And remember when they went and they got them arrested, right? And they said, didn't we tell you not to do this? and behold, you have filled Jerusalem with your doctrine, here over in 28, right? And intend to bring this man's blood upon us. Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man. Fauci. Oh. The God of our fathers raised up Jesus, whom you slew and hung on a tree. Him hath God exalted. Okay, remember we hit that part, didn't we? So I'm not going to recycle all this because I'm not going to get done otherwise. But what happened there at the end, right? They talked to, who was it? Paul's professor, I guess you could say, right? And what did he tell him? He said, if this is of God, your arm's too short to box, pal. You ain't going to win this one. If not, it isn't going to matter. When these guys die, or maybe even not even that long, it's just going to... It says we are, what, a vapor, right? Appears for a moment and then vanishes away. So would false doctrines like that. He runs through this list here. He talks about these other people that had shown up. Theudas, Judas of Galilee in the days of the taxing. And then, we were talking about once. Jim Jones, etc., etc. Well, where did they go?
In their spaceship.
Yeah, that was the California ones that were going to hike a ride on the passing comet, right? So they all committed suicide. Anyway, that all came to nothing too, didn't it, right? They had followers for a while. They all sat around and thought they absolutely knew what was going on, and the rest of us are stupid sheeple because we haven't seen the true enlightenment yet. And now they're a footnote in the history book.
Yeah.
Ask somebody on the street who Jim Jones is. Most of the people are not going to have any idea. They're just going to stare at you and go,
You'll see a musician.
yeah, did he play for the Ravens?
It's a band group. It's a rock group.
It's a rock group? Yeah. Jones Auto, right? Yeah, he sells cars. I know him. Yeah, right. And it says after all of that, they departed from the council. They were rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for the name. And daily in the temple and every house they ceased not to teach and preach themselves. They're so great. No. Ceased not to teach and preach Jesus Christ. Daily in the temple and the house. Okay, so after they got taken to prison, they got whooped. And he said, oh, wait a minute. Whoa, we are Roman citizens and we were beaten openly? No. No, that ain't sliding through. And they're right back at it. It doesn't say it was one time a week. It was Pastor saying on Thursday, oh man, really? Oh, church day again. I gotta be there a whole hour. Yeah. Church day again. One time a week. An hour is killing me. Yeah. How long's an average movie run? How many of us watch at least a movie a week? Well, that's a couple hours right there, isn't it? But you didn't cry about how long that was, right?
I don't know.
Not at all.
Well, yeah, I cried about The English Patient. They still owe me 3 hours and 20 minutes of my life back.
Schindler's List too.
Yeah, nah, Schindler was actually not too bad, but The English Patient, I still want to cash in that chip. I had no idea what was going on in that thing. They owe me 3 hours back. So you know that we've certainly heard this story before, but Paul and Silas, right? And so they ran into, well, basically some witches, right? So they were using curious arts, soothsaying. And they finally got tired of it and said, out, in the name of Jesus Christ. And after that, she couldn't be a witch anymore. So the owners got really mad, lied to the magistrate, burned them again, sent them back into prison again. And back here, now they're in the inner prison. You know, we've hit this before, right? And as we had mentioned, it's midnight. And what are they doing? They're crying about how sucky their life is, right? They're going, woe's me. Everybody hates me. Major pity party. No? They're not getting blind drunk because life sucks? No? They're not shooting something funky into their veins so they can... Ow. Pink unicorns. Lots of them. Woo! Magic mushrooms. It says that they were praising God at midnight.
Yes, Lord.
We know this one, right? There was an earthquake, right? The whole place shook apart, right? Everybody's freed.
Right.
And the jailer says, keeping it clean. I am really, insert whatever word you like here.
I think it's what the jailer said too, what you just said.
Yes, you agree.
He was free.
Yeah, it might have been that one. And he's about ready to do himself, right? Because he doesn't want to be crucified or chopped into pieces over the spaces of days, because the Romans were good at torture. They knew how to string it out a little bit, you know? Now, some people are like, yeah, okay, death sentence to be carried out. No, after your head's off, I mean, it's done, right? You ain't feeling anything more. And they're like, oh, that's no fun. Let's string it out. We'll just peel little pieces of skin off. And, we'll deflesh them a little bit, poke them, we'll burn them, take out fingernails. Yeah, they make it last. You know, it's gonna hurt. He's like, well, I'm gonna make this fast. Right? And it's like, whoa. Paul yells, do thyself no harm. We're still here. And his whole house was converted.
Amen.
And he took them the same hour of the night and washed their stripes and was baptized, he and all his house, straightway. Washed? Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so they got locked up, right?
Yeah.
Without mentioning why, has anybody spent a night in jail? Never mind. Forget that. Don't raise your hand. We don't really need to know that badly. I'm sure it's no picnic. Thankfully, I've dodged that. Although there was one incident where I thought I was going to, and that's a story for another day. That was pretty funny. That was way back when I was in my early 20s. Did something dumb and crossed paths with a Pennsylvania State Trooper. But anyway, that's just one of the ones I'm just going to leave you with. You can wonder and go, oh, I got to hear that story later. Night in jail ain't going to be a picnic. But it's a night in jail. These guys were there for a while. And if they had to get their stripes washed, what happened first? They got beaten. Now, yeah, beatings do occur in prison from time to time. It's like, wink, wink, I didn't see anything. The warden, wink, wink, I didn't see anything either. That's not how it's supposed to go. These guys ran things that way as a normal procedure. I mean, we know what happened to Jesus. We see that.
Right.
You know, we read the account. We watch the movie. You know, and I think the movie was a fairly accurate representation. Horrific, right?
Yeah.
You see, pieces of actual, body flying through the air. So they were pretty heftily mistreated here, weren't they? So here all of a sudden he goes from being chief of the jail, now all of a sudden to being a convert. Now he's actually trying to help them. Now, yeah, I get it, you can't put back the missing chunks, right? But he's trying to do his best to patch them up, seeing and knowing, since he was in charge, how badly they were treated to begin with.
Praise the Lord. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking of that situation. Since he was converted, you know what I'm saying, and he started treating them better, it was, because, they were just in stocks, bleeding, There was no care, they were taking for them, But now, he's so grateful that God saved him. And, his life was on, he was about to kill himself.
Yes.
So he's so grateful now that they shared the gospel with him, saying, they comforted him, saying, we're not gone. Because he knew if the prisoners had gone, that was going to be his life. He was going to be tortured and killed tremendously. So by being after being saved, and also his life being spared, knowing he got a family, he was so grateful to God for what he'd done and how God used these men. And he was able to, as a Christian, help them with their wounds and stuff like that. Treat them a little better. Things got a little better for them in the prison.
Yeah, well,
there was basically one song. Those are good points. But I mean, couldn't Paul have just flexed into his vindictiveness a little bit and just said, I'm not going to say anything. It's dark, nobody can see us anyway. Go ahead, run yourself through. You son of a, words deleted here, right? Yeah, I'm sure most of us would have done that. Like, oh, great. Let the guy ice himself. What do I care? He just got done beating me. Let him die. That would be our natural man reaction, right? Not our God-based reaction. So how much God did Paul and Silas have that they didn't do that? Right? Because why would they have called for a light and said, do thyself no harm, right? The earthquake must have shook out whatever they had. I don't know if they had oil lamps or they were candles or whatever they used for illumination was gone, right? Because otherwise, why would he point out specifically when they had called for lights? Right? So it was pitch dark. Anything could have been going on. And yet, even after all that mistreatment, they had enough Holy Ghost to say, you know what, I can't let this guy run him through. He's going to do it. They couldn't see him, but do you definitely figure that the Spirit was warning them, hey, this guy's about to kill himself, knowing what kind of a screw up that was. You need to intercept him, and his entire house is going to be saved. And they did. They listened, they obeyed, and that was the result.
it doesn't say how many more, right? But it says, he and all his. 2, 5, 20. You know, did he have a farmhouse going on? You know, I mean, a lot of people live big extended families, right? I mean, that wasn't even really, I mean, when did we really stop doing that? Probably about 100 years ago, right? I mean, you had big farmhouses in the 20s and 30s, right? You had grandparents, parents, children, sometimes great-grandchildren or grandchildren, you know, all stuffed up in this one big residence.
Right.
That was pretty much normal. But now we're just like, oh man, I got to get away from my parents as soon as possible. I'm 19, I'm moving out, yeah!
Yeah.
I regret that decision every day. But that was not unusual. So we don't even know how many people were here. But it said all his. So not only did they keep him from running himself through, but look at the impact it had on all those others. We never know. You know, we talk about collateral damage. A bomb goes off, right, and the main target gets hit. You know, we're hitting whatever ISIS somebody right in the truck, and we put a Hellfire missile into it, right? And then all of a sudden we realized that all the other vehicles were traveling along the convoy were all civilians, and we just blew them up too. It was like, collateral damage. Well, you can have the opposite. I don't know what you'd call it, but you could have, I don't know, collateral benefit? Does that work? Like the opposite of exploding people, right? Collateral benefit. His whole family got to hear, because of where he started his job, being the jailer. Not a very nice guy, we know. He was beating his prisoners. Of course, he may have had, you know, that may have been his overlord too, you know. We definitely know now that we all have, you know, pretty much for the most part, a boss pulling the strings, and none of the boss above him pulling the strings. Well, you know, back then it was even more rigid in a lot of things, how the dictatorship was, you know. Rome, you had the Caesar, you know, because they got rid of the Republic early in their history. And I won't even say what I'm thinking about's happening to our government, but anyway, they were very structured. So, you know, he might have been commanded, if you don't beat the prisoners, I'm going to beat you instead. Well, hey, that's an easy one. I'll beat them all day long. I don't want to get beat. So he started out in that position and ends up, the word, the message, the good news, the gospel, right, ends up coming to his entire house. And when it was day, the magistrate sent the sergeant, saying, let those men go. And the keeper of the prison told this, saying to Paul, the magistrate have sent to let you go. Now therefore depart, and go in peace. Paul said unto them, they have beaten us openly, uncondemned, being Romans, and cast us into their prison. And now do they thrust us out privily? Nay, verily, but let them come themselves and fetch us. And the sergeant told these words to the magistrates, and they feared when they heard they were Romans. Remember, we've gone over that multiple times, right? You can't beat a Roman citizen without going through the entire trial process. Now, if you weren't Roman, you know, what they considered the barbarian horde, the uncivilized, oh, you could beat them all day long. We don't care about them. It was just like the Jews. Remember we were talking about them, you know, how they had the whole ego thing? You're Jewish, and then there's everybody else. Well, the Romans did the same thing, right? It's Rome, and then it's the rest of the uncivilized barbarian world. And we're bringing them Roman civilization. And when they heard they were Romans, they came and besought them and brought them out and desired them to depart out of the city. They were begging, please don't tell anybody else. And they went out of the prison and entered into the house of Lydia, and when they them and departed. So remember we talked about Lydia too, right? What did it say? That she was a merchant. She made clothing. Well, yeah, I guess probably clothing too, but at least cloth anyway. It said she was seller of purple, so we don't know if that was just bulk material or whether, you know, there were actual garments, maybe both, but anyway, she was well off. And they wouldn't have mentioned all of that, you know, she didn't have a little cash, because how many people in the Bible get named by name? And then how many are actually women? Unless the book's about them, you know, like Ruth, right? Esther, okay, yeah, they got positions, right? Here we have Lydia. Most of the time it's like the damsel, the girl, the woman, the mother-in-law. We don't know who they are. They just disappeared into history, right? But she gets named by name, so something's going on here, right? And so they go to the house of Lydia because we know that she knew them from before. And she says, oh, y'all are back, you know? And then she must have been looking like, wow, what? Did you get the license plate of the bus that hit you? What happened to you guys? Oh, we had a little run-in with the jailer. I see. They'd seen the brethren and they comforted them, and then they departed. So this was what, 2,000 some years ago? Right?
Yes.
But isn't this still going on to this very exact day?
Yes.
Are there not people overseas right now in prison?
Yes.
They told them not to preach.
Yes.
You mentioned that Jesus guy again one more time, I'm going to land on you like a sledgehammer. Sorry, I can't do that. What did the apostles say? We must obey God, not man. Right? You can make up all the stupid, crazy, screwy laws that you want. He doesn't care about your laws. He doesn't care about your edicts. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about you being offended. I'm going to preach. There's people facing that very same thing today, yesterday, last week,
Yep.
and next week, and next month, and next year.
Yep.
And how long before it gets here?
Well,
It's partially here already. And it's pushing.
it is.
It's pushing real hard. It's like a leaky ship. All the seams are springing. Water's rolling in. We got the pumps running, but the pumps aren't keeping up. Sooner or later, it's going to get overrun and sink. We're going to end up right where those people are at,
Right
hiding
now.
in basements.
Yeah. It's
What do you guys do over there every Tuesday night? I see friends sneaking in and out of here. Oh, we just get together for movie night. Don't think it won't happen. We'll have to lie to our neighbors to keep it hidden. It'll come here too.
It's already here. Well, look
Yeah,
at
we'll come
what
here too.
happened last year. Churches were closed, and oh, you can't gather more than 10 people together. So that's already
Yeah.
happened here in the U.S. And look at people
Church
now.
closed, but the strip club, the tattoo parlor,
Right.
and the liquor store were open because they were
They were
essential.
open. They were essential.
They were essential.
Church is not essential.
Yeah.
Yep. Or look what's happening now with all the Christians that work in healthcare that are being threatened to lose their jobs
Yes.
because of the stand they're taking.
And there's that one.
It's already here.
So who's going to take a stand?
Yeah.
We gonna fold up the cardboard paper towel core? You beat somebody with it when it's dry. When it gets wet, it turns into a noodle. Which one are you? Do we have a backbone or do we fold? Pretty soon we're gonna have to make that choice too.
Yes.
Some of us have to make that choice right now, as Doc was mentioning.
Yep.
And later it'll be all of us.
Yep.
So I can't answer that for you. Pastor can't answer that for you. You and God know the answer. The rest of us, at best, can guess. What will be your stand?
Thank you.
Glory.
Was teaching, amen.